Yeah, hello everyone, and actually thanks to everyone in Magnolia for actually having us here on the Dev Days. It's just great to be here with you, and I've learned a lot of interesting things today already. Yeah, like you said, I'm Markus Hesper. I'm front-end lead at Dev2510. And I would like to talk about what feels like a very back-endy thing, at least to me. I mean, I don't know about you. Probably a lot of you guys are a little bit more familiar. Yeah, but let's dive into that. The good thing is that it actually falls right into place where maybe Sasha left off, because I think a lot of these topics that were discussed before will be coming back to that during the presentation. Okay. Okay, now it worked. Yeah, first of all, small agenda, just a brief overview. Will shortly introduce us as a company. Then I will actually say something about our actual motivation to develop this feature. Then I will say something about the solution idea we came up with. And then, of course, the most interesting part is actually how the actual implementation works. And then we'll have a look at the results, and maybe there will be one more thing at the very end. Now it works right away. Okay, so now for the small commercial break. Dev2510 is a Gold Magnolia partner. We're headquartered in Hamburg. We have quite a lot of Magnolia experience because we all, or at least some of us, used to work with Magnolia even before the company was started in 2015. So far we've realized over 70 Magnolia projects from version 4.5 onwards. So I think this is something that is actually kind of special for us, that we focus on Magnolia projects for quite a long time now. We have like 26 experts across the board and 15 Magnolia certificates by now. Among them there are 3 Magnolia professionals. Okay, now let's talk about the motivation to actually start this project. I mean, our interest as an agency is basically that we actually like to get hold of large multi-site Magnolia projects. Because this is basically, whenever a project gets large and complex, then we can actually justify our work, and this is actually what we're best in. Yeah, the problem, I mean, and of course, if we work on these complex projects, then of course as a developer, we pay a lot of attention to reuse our code, to split our code base into reusable modules, to basically make our lives easier. Yeah, but what about content? On most international multi-site projects, the main part of the content is maintained in one central content curation hub. So basically one node that gets copied around. And then we have usually like regional market teams working on localized content copies. Synchronizing these content trees takes long, and the overall size of the JCR becomes huge over time. So that's exactly what we've heard before. And of course, we as an agency have to deal with the challenges that come up with this. So we need to somehow manage these large repositories. We need to deal with lengthy workflows and publishing workflows. And of course, duplication of data is never actually a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone gets the idea. It's usually like an international operating company that has regional markets all over the globe. And yeah, usually they share a lot of their content with another because, of course, when you're a big company, then your business case, your history, your I don't know, your sustainability approaches or your services, they will not really change from market to market. I mean, they might, but usually they don't change very much. So the content somehow becomes very redundant from time to time. And what happens to us is basically that our customers go ahead and whenever they want to create a new site, they just duplicate the largest node they have in their page tree and start, yeah, basically making changes to that entire copy. Yeah, and of course every developer knows what happens once you create too much copies. You have redundancies, and you absolutely actually don't want to do that. Yeah, let's go on. So, what do we actually want to do? First of all, we actually want to keep the JCR as small as possible. We want actually to avoid our customers to duplicate their content. We want to be able to publish content fast, which is in the end a giant JCR node. And of course, we want to only share relevant content with regional markets, so they don't duplicate content that they actually don't want and that they have to delete afterwards anyway. Yeah, we really need to get rid of redundant copies, and we need something that feels like virtual nodes in the JCR, maybe. Little spoiler there. Yeah, and we actually want regional markets only referencing the source content, basically. And of course, what we all want, I guess everyone can agree, we all want our clients to be happy. Happy clients, happy life. It doesn't rhyme really good, but yeah, I think you get the idea. Yeah. Okay, so the solution which we came up with was we implemented what we call the shadow tree. So the shadow tree is just a working title for now. And it's a lot easier than the title of this whole presentation that luckily we're not forced to read out, I think. Yeah, so I think you'll get an idea what we actually mean by calling a shadow tree later on. But just keep in mind that it will probably be renamed at some point in time. It's not a final name for now, but I think it will work. Okay, so what is the shadow tree actually supposed to do? The shadow tree feature enables efficient, flexible management and distribution of centralized content within DXP. That's what it's supposed to do. And with the help of the shadow tree, complete page trees, including all associated assets, can be distributed from a central location without duplicating the content. Yeah, I feel actually it would maybe help to give some kind of real-world example. Of course, Magnolia is kind of our real world, but I was thinking, when I was thinking about this feature, I had something in mind, like imagining working in the movies and creating an army of orcs or something like that. Then of course you wouldn't go ahead and create 5,000 individual orcs. You would just, I don't know, create like 5 movement models and then make them reference to another, and then an entire army maybe comes together. Or just a simple example would be JPEG compression as well. Like a usual JPEG uses a color table that references all the colors and just links it to the pixel. No need to create all this data and to duplicate all this data to have all the information in place. So the concept is actually not really new. So I don't know, why do we have to deal with copies and content all the time? We need a solution that just works. So now for the fun part, I guess, we'll start talking about the implementation. The shadow tree is a virtual node tree resolved within the JCR session. It basically defines an entry point where embedding into a real JCR tree starts. Virtual nodes in the JCR tree still require a unique ID. Of course, we still need unique ID to find and resolve certain nodes. And yeah, let's just keep in mind we had some other core approaches. Basically, we wanted to wrap the relevant context as early as possible. So it is, in fact, a kind of substantial integration. Because, yeah, I mean, because of course we wanted to resolve everything like really early, but yeah, keep Magnolia happy at the same time. But doing so, we feel like, okay, we actually maybe made it work without Magnolia even noticing. Yeah. So I guess now it's maybe demo time. So this is how you all know the app launcher that I thought would be new, but I've learned earlier today that it's actually outdated already. So that was kind of some big news actually. I think the screencast will be rather quick. I'll try to keep up. We created a single page in the Pages app, just with some demo content. We dropped in there our legacy website, and during the screencast we will create what we call a shadow tree, and I will try to say things. I'll try to explain what's actually happening. Yeah, so we open up the Pages app and we find a little Hello Magnolia content page. Nothing special to see here, it's just a regular content page, you can simply go ahead, find all your lovely green bars. You can go ahead and edit text. It's just content, nothing special. I stole it from somewhere, don't remember where. But yeah, so until now, nothing too fancy. Now we scroll down and we have a little action there. We create a shadow tree. Let's say we want to open up an office in Ibiza. We select the index tree as a source tree, and okay, now things start to look and feel a little bit different maybe, because we now see that, okay, there are some more labels, and when we unfold that tree, we found basically a reflection of that page that I've just shown earlier within that new tree we just created. So that's basically the workflow that you would normally have if you would just document. If you would just duplicate a certain node in the Pages app. Yeah. But of course, what's special about the shadow tree and this version we just created of the page is you can hop over to the source page and start making changes. And these changes will be reflected immediately without anything being copied around or being re-indexed or whatever. This is just basically a resolved reference that is pointing to the exact same component that is eventually rendered in that what we call virtual page. So I don't know where we are actually in this. Let's see. Okay. So another action we have here is that we can, of course, convert a page to a local page. So we select that very page, that virtual page in the shadow tree, and right away it becomes editable. And from that moment on, you have newly a detached node within your JCR tree that you can just edit like any other Magnolia page, and it basically gets detached from its original. I mean, that branch in the JCR gets detached from the original, and you can start individualizing your content. Yeah, and once you start detaching pages, you can of course go ahead, because from the moment you start to detach a certain node or to convert it to a structural node, I'm not sure if we have that example on the screencast, then you can go ahead and start inserting new content pages and new nodes to the Pages app right away, and just like you're used to with any other page tree in the Pages app. Yeah, I think we're coming to an end here. Not really? I think we do. Okay, cool. Okay, so what have we just seen? We basically clicked that custom action, create shadow tree, which basically, I don't know, adds a new starting point for a shadow tree in our Pages app. We selected a reference node that is supposed to be reflected, and yeah, and then things started to look a little bit different. We have some like statuses and some labels in there. We have nodes that we call, of course, we have one node that is called the index node, which is basically the starting point of the shadow tree, where it starts referencing to the original. Then we have virtual nodes that are basically one-to-one references. Then we have these, what I said earlier, we have these structural nodes that have an S within their brackets, which are basically ready to hold new subpages, but will still receive instant content updates whenever the change is made to the original. And then we have what we call detached node, where an entire branch gets actually detached from the original, and you can just start individualizing this exact branch right where it is in your page tree. Yeah, and then of course, last but not least, there are local pages. So whenever you start creating a new subpage as a subpage of a detached node or a structured node, then this is what we call a local node. Okay, but how does this actually look in the JCR? It's pretty normal actually. It looks actually like a regular JCR tree. Just some Magnolia pages, areas, and components. Actually, it looks totally normal, and that's why, because all the references I actually resolved on the fly. It actually gets resolved before Magnolia handles and renders them. And that's why we did not touch the UI of the JCR browser at all. And that's why it looks like that, because it actually gets the resolved tree before it's actually being rendered. Okay, and yeah, that's actually a pretty cool thing, because what works here would also work in all other workspaces. So you could basically simply create your own content app, and you can make Shadow Tree work for, I don't know, whatever content structure you actually come up with. Yeah, one thing that I found actually quite funny is that the Shadow Tree actually starts to get really interesting once you actually disable this feature. We have a small debug action in place, and yeah, this is basically how that tree looks like from the JCR perspective when the Shadow Tree feature is basically turned off. So as you see, it's just a node and a property or special property that points to the UUID of the original tree, and everything else happens right after that. And of course you can imagine, like, if you would like to create like 500 times more, the JCR would not grow, I don't know, substantially, because it will always be just a reference to another tree that gets inserted in the JCR. So this will save a lot of space when you compare it to duplicating an entire tree. Yeah, of course, things are not always as nice as we've just seen. This is the JCR, how it looks after we did that little screencast we saw earlier. And so we get a better understanding of what actually happened there. I mean, it's still just a regular JCR tree. Remember, Shadow Tree feature is still turned off at that point. But here you see what we actually did when we, for instance, detached that Hello Magnolia page. At the moment you actually detach that very branch in the tree, of course the contents needs to be copied over, because the editors are going to start changing them. And at the very bottom we have the structural page. Remember, there was just a page that had the label S behind it, and it was just made ready to hold more subnodes. That's why this one is in place. But beside from that, there is actually not much happening. So we actually copied over only the things we want to change, but we also want to keep the rest from the original page tree. Yeah. Yeah, so let's sum up some of the features. Basically, Shadow Tree is in line with the just standard regular authoring and publication workflows. It absolutely minimizes the JCR overhead. It minimizes redundancies in local copies, and that's what basically we were up to when we thought about this problem. All local copies and structures are both reversible and extensible, so we can, of course, start creating subpages. We can add more content to detached nodes, but we can always get rid of these local copies right away. Just by deleting them, the original from the source tree will fall into place, because at that moment the entire tree will get resolved, like taking the source tree into account again. And of course that way, because it's super easy to actually delete these pages, you can switch seamlessly between virtual and local content. And one feature that we didn't see in the screencast is that we also have a mechanism for subscribing to certain content categories. So you could have 10 pages in your source market, and you can just tag them with certain categories, and you can decide, okay, hey, I want to have these 5 pages, but not the other ones. So it's basically some sort of filtering the source content. And that way it gives you some control about the content that is actually displayed in your local site. That is yeah, without basically overriding it or detaching nodes or something like that. Yeah, we have some limitations for now. So of course there are no editing functions for virtual pages, because if you would actually like edit the original in the end. So if you want to start editing, the process for now would be like to convert it to a local page for now. There are no JCR observations, but we have a custom solution to actually make personalization work. So we are still quite in line with Magnolia's core features. There are no JCR SQL queries for the moment, and that's just because the data is not where it seems to be. Yeah, and the system context is not right. Okay, the next steps. I think I also need to come to an end. We're pretty confident that we're like 80% done with this. Right now it's a small Magnolia module, and we're thinking about publishing it. We're currently in the code review with Magnolia and looking into this feature because we think it's like really powerful, but also like pretty heavily integrated. So yeah, of course we need to talk about that, if it's whether it's a good idea. And of course we are also looking forward to customer feedback. And I would personally like to take the next step and think about a component concept. So that's something I'm really like looking forward to, because of course the next step could be just detaching local components and then receiving updates from the original reference, but start to make your changes on the page like even more granularly. Okay. Oh yeah. Last but not least, we have a little bonus feature, because as of now we were only thinking in a just regular Magnolia instance scenario. So we were thinking about, like, basically all the demo was just on an author, like duplicating a node, nothing fancy there. But if you think about this shadow tree approach, you could basically think about that the entire source tree would be maintained on its own authoring instance. So you could basically have the source tree in a Magnolia instance and have, like, if we jump back to this example from the beginning with the international company, you could have a headquarter like authoring like the content they want to basically publish all over their markets on a dedicated authoring instance. And then you can use an author-to-author publishing to basically push these content changes to the regional markets. And these, in this case, would also be in other authoring instances. And the changes to that content will become visible to the editors right away or right after the publication. And from that point in time, they can just go ahead and just adopt these changes and just accept the changes and publish it using their own workflow. So doing this, we can basically, I don't know, both split the authoring environments, because of course we all know what happens when a lot of editors are like logging into an authoring instance, and so they don't share the resources anymore. But also we give them the ability to just go at their own pace, adapt the new content and publish it whenever they want. Yeah, so we think that's also a good thing when you, or a pretty big thing when it comes to, I don't know, scaling and rolling out over individual and international markets. Yeah, so that's it. That's the shadow tree feature. I think now we have some time for questions, maybe. Of course, like you saw earlier, I'm a front-end developer, so when the questions get too technical, I will hand the mic over to my back-end experts. And yeah, so I don't know. Did I raise any questions?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was taking a job.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so yeah, do we have some questions from Marcus or the team? Yes, we have some. I saw some hand waving. No. In that case, I would have a question. It seems like it's in a similar space to the live copy module. Can you speak anything to like the differences to live copy, or maybe I'm just not getting part of it, but it seems very related. problem.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's of course doing kind of the same thing, but obviously totally different because it's not copying things over from one node to the other. There is no like moving of giant JCR trees around. It's basically just pointing references to another one. And yeah, that's actually the big difference. So the outcome could be kind of the same, but we think that this approach makes actually quite a lot of sense. Like, we said earlier, I mean, there are a lot of real-world appliances and every developer knows that using references is better than copies. So that's basically it.
Great. Another question. I was just kind of wondering, it seems like many things are supported, some things are not supported, which makes sense. But it is a bit, it seems like maybe you need some time to wrap your head around it. At least I did a little bit, the virtual node and so forth. Do you think the mental model is something that authors can work with, or would that be...
I think we are pretty sure that we have some UI challenges to tackle. I think that's why you're asking for that.
Wow.
But maybe you can even help us with that. I think it is definitely a totally new approach to that problem, and of course you need to make the editors understand that, of course. But also at the same time, we have quite a lot of projects where actually our customers ask for these things, and usually we end up creating some sort of limited individual solution for them that works, I don't know, kind of the same every time, but also a little bit different. And this approach is now the first one we took, which is more individual than the other ones.
Okay, nice. So any additional questions for Marcus? Yeah, we've got a question in the back. Just wait for the mic.
Thank you. It's an interesting topic. Everybody has probably come up with. Now, the question is, does this work with the content delivery API, headless?
I guess it will, right? Because it happens...
You said GCR, the queries doesn't work, GCR queries doesn't work, so I assume that the content delivery API relies heavily on queries?
I think it happens before, right? Well, I'll hand over the mic to... Oh, okay. I don't have to.
Also the web context gets wrapped, and basically if the normal endpoint is called to just get the content via a hub, it will work, but the query will not work because it relies on the JCR SQL query, and that's not possible with this implementation.
Are there some additional questions? Okay, then Marcus, thank you so much again for your presentation. Really, really cool.